The Atlanta Braves are set to take on the Baltimore Orioles in the series finale, and each team's lefty hitters are going to be the ones that decide today's game. Yes, this is your Braves Today Scouting Report, a production of the Belief Podcast Network and presented to you by FanDuel. I'm Lindsey Crosby. In the next 15 or so minutes, we're breaking down everything you need to know before first pitch. Today, it's the Braves and the Baltimore Orioles in the series finale. So let's get into it. Both teams have put out their lineups for the game. For the Atlanta Braves, Drake Baldwin leads off. It's the same lineup as yesterday, right? Drake Baldwin leads off behind the plate. Ozzie Albies batting second, Matt Olson batting third, and Michael Harris, the cleanup hitter, in center field. Mauricio Dubon is in left field batting fifth. Dominic Smith at DH. Austin Riley bats seventh at third base. Mike Yastrzemski, not Brewer Hicklin, is in right field batting eighth, and Jim Jarvis at shortstop batting ninth, hoping to have a little bit more defensive, a little cleaner defensive effort than his two errors he had yesterday. On the mound for the Braves, Reynaldo Lopez. Looking to rebound after a rough start last time out. 4-3, 3.95 ERA. A lot of the estimators are a little bit down on his performance this season. 4.87 expected ERA. 4.58 field and independent pitching. Strikeout rates, roughly 21%. Walk rate of just under 10%. Both of them kind of below average numbers. The thing that he has been good at this year is minimizing the hard contact. Average exit velo against is 87.5 miles an hour. That's 74th percentile in baseball. And so because of that, his hard hit rate, 35.8%, is 68th percentile. Now, the problem is he is a fly ball pitcher, right? He is getting under 40% ground balls. So when he does give up hard contact, tends to be in the air. And because of that, he has an outlier or a below average barrel rate, 7.8%. Nobody on Baltimore's roster, knock on wood, has taken Lopez deep, but also not very many guys have seen him. Pete Alonso's 3 for 6, Gunnar Henderson's 1 for 1, Taylor Ward's 1 for 3 with 2 RBI. I mentioned the lefties being important in this one. Watch the walks by Reynaldo Lopez to lefties. I think an under discussed platoon situation going on here is Reynaldo Lopez has walked one of the 124 righties that he's faced, less than 1% walk rate. He's walked 27 of the 159 lefties that he's faced, right? A 17% walk rate to lefties. Baltimore has 4 lefty hitters and a switch hitter in today's lineup. Dylan Beavers, Gunnar Henderson towards the top, Colton Cowser in the middle, Leody Taveras, Jackson Holliday towards the bottom. Taveras is the switch hitter there. So the concern here is going to be, can he find a way to get them out versus giving them free passes so that if he does make a mistake, it's now a multi-run mistake. Like, the lefties don't necessarily have to jump on a pitch and obliterate it to do damage. They just have to kind of refuse to chase the slider. And if they do that, they can elevate his pitch count. They can force him to come into the zone with fastballs. They don't have to ambush stuff right away. And when he's facing lefties, on the whole this season, it's 4-seam slider, a little bit of curveballs. But the last time we saw him, he threw 80-something pitches. All but 4 of them were 4-seam slider. So he has to be able to not only zone pitches against lefties, but also get it past their bats. Maybe he brings the slider into the zone. Maybe he tries to set up the fastball. He has to figure out, maybe he brings back the curveball in this situation. He just has to figure out something against the lefties, because a 17% walk rate against lefties is going to come back to bite Atlanta in the butt almost every single time. It's very, very hard to succeed if you're walking 17% of the left-handed batters and over half of their lineup, given the switch hitter Taveras, will be lefty. So something to keep in mind there for the Braves. When it comes to the Baltimore Orioles, their lineup is The same lineup we saw in game 1. Okay, so Dylan Beavers moving back to left field, leading off, Pete Alonso at first, Gunnar Henderson at short, Taylor Ward going back to the DH spot, Christian Encarnacion Strand at third base, Colton Cowser checks back in center, which moves Leody Taveras to right, batting 7th, Jackson Holliday at second base, and Chadwick Tromp catching. So Beavers, Alonso, Henderson, Ward, Encarnacion Strand, and Cowser, Taveras, Holliday, and Tromp. Starting here is Shane Baz, and he also is going to be vulnerable to lefties. So for Baz on the whole, 4.9, 4.05 ERA. It's a 4.23 expected ERA and a 3.46 fielding independent pitching. It's a 5-pitch mix. The four-seamer sits at 96 miles an hour. He's got a knuckle curve at like 85, a cutter that's just below 90 miles an hour, a high 80s changeup, and a sinker as well. Not throwing a slider, which is a little bit kind of unusual for a righty starter, right? But another situation here where the performance against lefties isn't that great. And frankly, the performance in general for Shane Baz isn't that great. For a guy averaging 96 and throwing 5 pitches, he's just not missing a lot of bats. 21.7% whiff rate is 23rd percentile in baseball. Hitter, like in zone contact against Shane Baz is 89%. So he's throwing a lot of pitches. You sometimes tend to chase, but if you can hold off on chasing, you're going to get hittable stuff in the zone despite the velocity, right? Shape of the four-seamer, the locations, things like that. He is going to be vulnerable. The pitch you really have to worry about, and I'm not going to go as far as saying the only pitch you have to worry about, but the pitch you do need to worry about is that knuckle curve. Whiff rate's like 30%. The xWOBA is below average. That's the pitch you need to avoid chasing. He doesn't zone it a ton. He's trying to get chase on it. It's more of a true vertical curveball, right? Not a ton of horizontal movement compared to the usual righty curve. So the goal here, don't chase out of the curveball out of the zone. Make him come in the zone with the fastball and the changeup. The changeup has a 622 expected slug against it. The four-seamer has a whiff rate of like 17%. And against lefties, that's where he's vulnerable. Lefties have a 780 OPS against Shane Baz, more than 100 points better than what righties are doing. And the game plan against Shane Baz is really going to be, again, make him establish the command of the curveball. If he can't do that, it's going to be a long day. Keep him out of 2-strike counts. Don't chase it. Whatever you have to do, make him come into the zone with the four-seamer and the changeup. That is kind of the goal here. Also, the first inning for both guys, by the way, not great. 5.40 ERA for Baz in the first inning. Lopez has an 8.10. Small sample sizes, I know, but if you're looking at maybe doing an NRFI prop bet, no runs in the first inning, neither guy is really good in the first inning, so maybe think about that. The way that Baz attacks these lefties is particularly interesting because it's maybe not necessarily leaning into his strengths. He is very aggressive with using that four-seamer early in the count and really only ramps up the knuckle curve when he gets to 2 strikes, right? It's almost 50% usage on the first pitch of the four-seamer. He also is more likely to throw in the zone with that four-seamer on the first pitch. So there is a easy, if you want to be aggressive and ambush that first pitch fastball, it's a pretty decent strategy against Shane Baz. When he faces a righty, he is a little more variable here, both with how many pitches he uses, how frequently he uses them. His primary fastball in these situations is the cutter. So interesting little wrinkle there. He ramps up the sinker use early. So early, you are very, very, it's like 80% chance you're going to get a fastball early. He does also throw more strikes than balls on the first pitch. But again, you're not going to know which fastball it is if you're a righty. If you're a lefty, it's if it's a fastball, it's going to be a four-seamer. If you're a righty, could be a cutter, could be a sinker, could be a four-seamer. They all get used early in the at-bat. And then when he's behind, obviously he's ramping up cutter usage. He's ramping up sinker usage. When he gets ahead, when he gets to 2 strikes, that's where he rips out the knuckle curve, and he's going a lot of knuckle curve four-seam. Because, again, he's looking for you to chase that knuckle curve below the zone. Changeup really isn't a factor here. Right on right, that's just not a pitch he throws very often. He's thrown a couple of them early in the count before he gets to 2 strikes, but I don't believe he's thrown a single one with 2 strikes. So it is really just knuckle curve four-seamer for righties. Only 3 Braves hitters have ever faced Shane Baz. They're all new additions to the team for this season. None of them are that successful. Mauricio Dubon's 1 for 7. Joey Bart's 1 for 5. And Jorge Mateo's 0 for 2. And those at-bats came when he was a member of the Orioles and Baz was with the Rays. So not a lot of experience against Shane Baz. They haven't seen him. The velocity is impressive. But again, the fastball doesn't miss a lot of bats. And you absolutely can get balls in play and get damaging contact off of Shane Baz. If you're looking at the bullpen status for both teams, Raisel Iglesias, Dylan Dodd, they pitched a back-to-back Wednesday and Thursday. They are both coming off 2 days rest. They're good to go for today. Dylan Lee threw 20 pitches on Friday. He got yesterday off. He should be good to go for today as well. Victor Medeiros and Didier Fuentes, I would imagine they're both down for today and probably Monday too. Fuentes threw 32 pitches last night, covering 2 innings. Medeiros threw 30 pitches, covering 2 innings. So both those guys likely down. But Danny Young is 1 day of rest after a back-to-back. Maybe you have him as well. And longman Connor Thomas was called up on Saturday. He hasn't pitched yet. So you have length. You have a couple lefties. You have your closer. Atlanta has the pieces that they need to secure a win if they get there. Baltimore is in a similar situation, not as good on the leverage front, right? They've kind of mixed up the leverage arms that they used. They used Andrew Kittredge and Tyler Wells in game 1. They used Yenier Cano as a leverage arm in game 2. Rico Garcia and Grant Wolfram pitched in both. I would imagine Garcia's down. He had 18 pitch blown saves in the 8th inning in both of the first 2 games of the series. We would love to have him pitch the 3rd inning today as well. Given the short-term history here, I imagine he's down. Wolfram, they may try to bring him back, right? He's one of only 2 lefties in the bullpen. And yes, he did a back-to-back, but it was 18 total pitches. So they may try to bring him back if they want a leverage lefty late against Atlanta. I can imagine Cano can likely come back. 9 pitches yesterday. Kittredge and Wells have had a day off. So Baltimore's also doing just fine in the bullpen department. Neither team really has an advantage here. Kind of final thoughts in this one. Last I checked, Braves Today sponsor FanDuel. They actually had these 2 teams tied. Exact same -108 odds on the money line. Over under of 8.5 runs. It really does feel like whichever starting pitcher can miss more bats and can handle the other side's lefties, that's the team that's going to be poised to get a win. It's going to come down to Shane Baz versus Ronaldo Lopez. And it really, again, worth saying, probably going to come down to the 1st inning. I know that that's a small sample size. It's important to point that out. It's a small sample size, but neither one of these guys have been very successful in the 1st inning. So let's see which team can jump at it and get to the other starter early. And if you can continue to kind of, to do damage against that starter, your lefties can continue to hit them. That's probably who ends up winning today's game. That's your Braves Today scouting report. If you want the deeper analysis, the lineup breakdowns, everything behind the numbers, make sure you are subscribed to Braves Today. Enjoy the game. We'll be back after it with a postcast over on Locked On Braves. And today's 3 things are a game recap over at bravestoday.com.